What's up, everyone? We got another NFL offseason recap video. Today, we're going to be looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, how their season went last year, what they've done so far in free agency, and what they should be looking for in the draft. I think the best way to describe the Buccaneers season is inconsistency. You'd have a couple games where the Buccaneers looked on pace to score 60 points in one game with a prolific offense featuring two of the best receivers in the game in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Then you'd have games where Jameis Winston just goes off the rails, throws 4 picks, 2 pick sixes. The defense can't guard anyone, can't get any pressure, and they lose like 42-10. And that's why they finished with the 7-9 record, finishing 2-4 in their division. They just couldn't play together for a whole season, and when they did play together, they looked great. They finished with the 22nd best offensive DVOA. Their quarterback, Jameis Winston, obviously led the league in passing yards, while also throwing for 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. Now, if you follow baseball, you know that in baseball, a 40-40 season, which means 40 home runs and 40 stolen bases, is considered to be very good. Now, in this case, throwing 30 picks and throwing 30 touchdowns, exactly 30 on the dot, is considered bad for a quarterback. And yeah, Bruce Arians was supposed to come in this offseason and fix Jameis Winston, and he did have a great year in terms of how many yards he produced, but throwing that many picks in Bruce Arians' offense is not going to cut it. So they've obviously moved on from Jameis. They've signed Tom Brady so far. I'll get to that in a second. But the rest of the offense, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, both went over 1,000 yards this year. The running back situation was still a mess. Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones don't look like they can handle a backfield to themselves. O.J. Howard took a major step back in Bruce Arians' offense, which was kind of expected. If you look at Arians with the Colts or with the Cardinals, there's never been a really good tight end that's fit in their system. So some regression was inevitable, but not to the point where Cameron Brate was performing better than him. The defense actually did really well this year under defensive coordinator Todd Bowles. They signed a bunch of players in free agency last year, Shaquille Barrett, and Ndamukong Suh, and a couple of their guys played really well from the draft, Devin White, Sean Murphy-Bunting, and they finished with the 5th best defensive DVOA. They actually had the best run defense in the league, led by guys like Ndamukong Suh, Vita Vea, obviously Devin White, Levante David. They had a really good front seven. And of course, their free agent signing last year, Shaquille Barrett, led the league in sacks with 19.5. And it should be a defense that continues to get better going forward, as most of their guys are returning this year, as they re-signed a couple of players in free agency, which I will get to in a second. Now, before free agency started, the Buccaneers actually didn't make any moves to either re-sign or let players go. But in free agency, the Buccaneers were the team to watch in terms of who they're going to sign. So the first, I would say, big move that they made, franchise tagging Shaquille Barrett. This guy just came off a 19.5 sack season, led the league in sacks. He was just a rotational pass rusher in Denver a couple of years ago, but now he's a star edge rusher. Franchise tagging him, which means the Bucs will either keep him on a 1-year deal, or let's see if they negotiate a long-term deal. In my opinion, I want to get 1 more year out of him. Let's see if he can get double-digit sacks. Then he can get maybe Von Miller money. Maybe he can get some Jason Pierre-Paul money. But if you're the Bucs GM, you have to ask yourself, is Shaquille Barrett going to turn into Vic Beasley Jr.? One great year, which means he's going to be a star edge rusher, or is he just having one good year and the next year he's going to produce less than double-digit sacks, right? So you got to think about that. The Bucs also made some moves to bolster their front seven, keeping a lot of the guys. Jason Pierre-Paul, 2 years, $25 million contract. He was doing good after he came back from his injury. And Ndamukong Suh, 1 year, $8 million contract. Love this deal. Him and Vita Vea, I would say, are the best defensive tackle combination right now in the league. Maybe Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave down in Philadelphia, or up in Philadelphia, would rival them. Resigning Blaine Gabbert, 1-year deal, keeping that continuity from Bruce Arians' offense. He was the backup to Winston last year, and now in case Brady gets hurt, Arians knows he can trust his backup quarterback. Resigning Ryan Smith, 1-year deal. Kevin Minter, 1-year deal. They signed Joe Haig, who's an offensive lineman from the Colts, 1-year, $2.5 million contract. Now the big deal, Tom Brady, 2 years, $50 million. You have to understand, Bruce Arians has had a history of coming in with veteran quarterbacks and turning them into studs. He's just a quarterback whisperer, and it's not that he needs to make these old quarterbacks better. He just knows how they fit and how they would work in his system. You see it in Peyton Manning when Arians was offensive coordinator in Indianapolis. Then he went to Arizona. Carson Palmer had pretty much the best year of his career when the Cardinals went to the playoffs. Just had an outstanding year. Now he's getting the greatest quarterback, the greatest player of all time in NFL history, Tom Brady. and I expect him to do wonders. He has, in my opinion, the best receiving duo in Evans and Godwin. He has a decent offensive line, which only should get better through the draft and maybe some later free agency moves. Brady also loves his slot receivers, as we saw with Julian Edelman, with Danny Amendola. He has one of the best in the league right now in Chris Godwin, who can block, who can run any route, who has great hands, yards after the catch, he can do it all. So from a scheme fit, Brady fits better here than probably anywhere else. Maybe the Chargers were a good place, Keenan Allen in the slot also, Mike Williams on the outside, but I think Brady's going to be able to succeed here. All they need now is one or two more offensive linemen and a running back that can catch balls, which they should be able to get in the draft. This is a very deep offensive line class, and they should be able to get some really good running back value in the second or third round, depending on where the Bucs choose to address that position. Now, because the Bucs signed a lot of players to big deals in free agency, this means they have to let a couple of people go. Running back Peyton Barber went to the Redskins, so this should be Ronald Jones III year to shine. I mean, we've been waiting for this for 2 years out of USC. He hasn't been able to produce, but with Barber gone, I mean, he is the workhorse right now. Brashard Perriman to the Jets. I think the Bucs made a good deal letting him go. They have two good receivers. They have some other receivers like Scotty Miller that they could possibly throw to. Perriman had a great finish to the season, which means he was going to get some big bucks from whichever team was chasing after the production, and the Jets did. I think, like I said before, I think the Jets got a solid deal, not a great deal, because he hasn't done anything to prove he's a number one receiver. But again, a solid move from the Jets. Good job from the Bucs letting him go. Rotational pass rusher Carl Nassib to the Raiders, and nose tackle Bo Allen to the Patriots. Now, the Bucs have two players that have remained unsigned, the two big players. Jameis Winston, number one. We don't know where Winston's going to go. Some people think he's a number one quarterback. Some people view him as a backup and, a good backup in case the starter gets hurt. I really have no idea where Winston could go. He could go to the Patriots. He could go to the Chargers. He could go to the Raiders. He could go to the Colts. I really don't know. But at this point in his career, Winston is pretty much a number one pick bust. If you're out of your first team as the number one overall pick, by the time your rookie contract is up, you are pretty much a bust. And throwing 30 picks in Bruce Arians' offense, that's just disappointing for Bucs fans who thought Winston was going to have a career year, which he did. I mean, he did lead the league in passing yards, but throwing 30 interceptions, I can't even think about how you're going to make that many bad reads. And some of them were just horrible throws. His accuracy was off the charts. Some of them were really bad reads. Some of them were his receiver's fault. But you can't blame 30 picks on the system, or you can't blame 30 picks on your receivers. So I think it's smart for the Bucs to let him go. DeMar Dotson, 34 years old, letting him go is the right deal. This is a very good offensive line draft. So letting him go in free agency and being able to pick up someone that could protect Tom Brady from the right is a good move for the Buccaneers. Now on the draft, there's two things you need to do. Protect Tom Brady and not make him throw too much, which means you're drafting offensive linemen to protect him and cornerbacks to prevent him from throwing the ball 40 to 50 times a game. Now, like I said before, this is a very deep offensive line class. You don't need to trade up and waste any more future picks to get an offensive line for Brady. By pick 14, which is where the Bucs are picking, you should be able to get a guy like Andrew Thomas or Mekhi Becton, Tristan Wirfs, or Jedrick Willis. Now, if it seems like all four are going to be gone, which is definitely possible, you could see, you could see the Dolphins, Chargers, Cardinals, Jaguars, Jets taking offensive linemen. If it seems that way, then yeah, make the trade up. This is your time. This is your window. You have 2 years to win a Super Bowl. And if you waste those 2 years from Tom Brady, who knows who's going to run quarterback. So protecting him with an offensive lineman is a must. Getting some other cornerbacks. I mean, they had a solid duo with Sean Murphy-Bunting and second-year Carlton Davis at cornerback, but they could always improve the slot cornerback position. They could always get more bodies in the secondary. Getting a running back to help Brady out, I would say in the second or third round is a need for them. Guys like maybe J.K. Dobbins, Zach Moss, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, just guys that would catch the balls out of the backfield from Brady. I think Edwards-Helaire fits that description best. A small runner just like James White, but very powerful, can catch the ball pretty well. Edwards-Helaire caught a lot of balls in Joe Brady's offense from Joe Burrow. So I think that's a really good pick for them. And finally, just getting another safety. I know Justin Evans is there. He's a pretty much just like a starting caliber safety, but getting another safety to just anchor that secondary and add to the bodies that they have already is a need for the Buccaneers as well. That is all for this NFL offseason recap video on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Don't forget to like, comment what do you think the Buccaneers record will be in 2020 and who you think they should take in the draft, and subscribe.